What's up, guys? Thanks for joining live. We're gonna dive into some really nerdy computer coding stuff using the Ghozt Sequence Designer. And one of our guys, Hunter, has put together a file that has a bunch of cool animations. I haven't really looked at it yet. I'm gonna go ahead and load that thing up. We're gonna play around with the coding on it. And then as we work along, what we're gonna end up doing is getting to test it on the actual taillights that they were designed for. So I'm here in the Sequence Designer, and if you look, I'm on this little tab that says turn. And so all of these little lines of code right here, those are all the codes that Hunter wrote for what happens as soon as the turn signal comes on. That's so funny. Check this out. When you don't read your chat and then you start making a video, like I'm gonna literally do all of that again. Oh, you know what's the funny thing too is I was like, damn, 21 channel WRX, that kind of sucks because those things are like, they're gone. Like I don't get to even test them. The Genesis Coupe lights are here. Ready for that dumbness to happen again? All right, let's just do this. All right. I just got a file that I loaded onto the Ghozt Sequence Designer, and I thought that it was for a WRX, and so I loaded this little configuration file that looks like the C shape of the WRX, and I started looking at it, and I'm live streaming as I do this. And the funny thing was, it wasn't actually made for the WRX. It was just made for a completely different taillight. The file looks different. It was made for a single color, not one like what I'm about to show you right now that's got all of these different white LEDs on there. It's just supposed to be one color, one group of LEDs in this cool little squiggly line because it's made for a Genesis Coupe. But in my excitement and live streaming and fumbling through all of this awesome stuff, I just threw the other configuration file, which was from a WRX. So I'm going to show you now how to properly load a configuration file for a Genesis Coupe. And then we're going to check out my man Hunter's file that he created so that we can show off some different animations on a set of Genesis Coupe lights. And I'm going to put those lights on my bench here, and as I'm talking, we're going to show off Hunter's file. We might make some changes to it, we might update it, make a couple little modifications, and then load those things on there, look at how the LEDs act, and then we're done. And that's going to be our video for the day. A quick little sequential training thanks to Hunter and thanks to all the guys in Sequential Squad, so if you don't know about the squad, that's where these guys that are watching me be a complete goof on live daily videos are actually posting up their work in a Facebook group, as well as on my website where we're putting all these files together, which you have access to, including these WRX files or these Genesis Coupe files or GTR stuff. All of it, we're working on it together collectively, and nobody even has to have that car or those lights or anything. It's a free program. You can mess with it. Your kids can mess with it. I think we're now to like 3 or 4 kids that have sat there and written a bunch of code because it's kind of fun to do it. So if you're like those kids, maybe it'll be fun for you. Maybe it won't. I don't know. But we're going to hop in right now to the Sequence Designer, and I'm going to change that configuration file that I said I loaded up wrong using the WRX configuration. Now we're going to change it to a Genesis Coupe configuration. Here we go. And this was created by my man Hunter, who called it a 21 channel. So that is how I like everybody to name things. Say who created it, and then tell me how many channels it has. And because I'm such a goof and I can't keep track of things, I also like to put the name of what it's actually for. So it says Genesis Coupe 21 channel. So I'm actually gonna save that name. And then I'm going to add that same thing right here. So now as we make little changes to it, it's at least going to have that at the very beginning. It's going to ask me if I want to overwrite it. Of course I do. Now we are going to actually make the change that I was supposed to do earlier. So we've got all these different CLC files, or I'm sorry, GLC files, Ghost Lighting Configuration files. So we've got one that was made for the Genesis Coupe. I'm going to look around in my files here. Got a bunch of stuff that you guys have all loaded up. Genesis Coupe animations, GLC. Let's check this out. Boom. We just changed from a WRX style taillight to a Genesis Coupe. And now we're scrolling down, checking out Hunter's turn signal animation for that. Very cool. So before anything else, before I forget, I'm going to go ahead and save this project. It's going to ask me if I want to override it, and of course I do. Now the cool thing is, if you look at a file that's just got a straight line and you don't really get to see the shape and the kind of character of the light that it's for, it's a little bit harder to understand how awesome this is all going to look once it's on the car / once it's on the actual taillights. In this case, we get to check everything out first on the computer, and then I'm going to set the light up here, and it will be a good thing. So we're going to dive into a couple changes right now. I'm looking at the brake file. I did look at the turn signal already, but the one that is the funnest, where you can really get lost and spend a couple hours working in the coding, is the animation files for the show modes. So let's check out what Hunter did for that really quick by clicking on this little thing right here that says show. And all of these little steps are parts of his show mode that he's put. And then if you look, there's another one next to that that says park, and then another one that says start. So there's a bunch of different parts here on the configuration, like on the actual sequence designer. And it says right here on this little drop down that the input for number 4 function is startup animation, which is why that says start. If I want to change that to a second show mode, now it says show 2 right there. And now this is just going to be a secondary little animation setup for this. So Hunter put this thing together that has all of these little functions. And so once we're all happy with what it looks like, we're going to check out the park sequence. Let's see, it's starting on and then turning off and bouncing and doing all sorts of crazy stuff. That's what it's going to do on the actual taillights. So I'm going to compile this. I'm going to click a button, and it says that I need to save it, which I have. Now it's going to turn this thing into a condensed little version called a hex file, and we're going to load that up to the Ghozt lighting module on the back of these Genesis Coupe taillights. And it should look pretty awesome. And in one case recently, we were actually about to do this, and we were going to load a bunch of stuff during the live stream and show everybody what these animations looked like. And the server was down because the guys at Ghozt Lighting have all of these awesome tools for us to play with that they built, that they put together. Not only their modules, but their software as well. And all of that runs on their server. Now, from time to time, the server's down. So if you're trying to make some configuration files and this, that, and the other, and you're trying to use the sequence designer and turn it into these little hex files that we're going to use to put on this little Ghozt Lighting module, if it fails, sometimes the server's down. That happened the other day. It's just worth noting. Anyway, I'm going to grab these taillights, and then we're going to check out what that file looks like, load it up, and show Hunter what his hard work has turned into. All right, we're going to hop in and check out Hunter's file now that I've turned into a hex file. We're going to load that onto these lights that are on the counter here on the desk, and we're going to use this little tool, just called a Picket 3. You can kind of barely see it there. I've got it plugged into the light. If you can see from the back side of the light, I'm holding it into the Ghozt module. And now I'm going to open up another program, which is called MP Lab or something. Let's see, what's it called? It's from microchip.com. MP Lab IPE. And this is going to take that hex file that we just created using the Ghozt Sequence Designer, and it is going to load that thing onto the module that I'm holding in my hand right now. So I'm connecting it. I just told the computer to start communicating with the device I'm holding, and normally you just plug it in. In this case, I'm actually making sure that it's got a good solid connection. Now I'm going to look for that file that we created. Here it is, 100K Genesis Coupe 21 channel. I loaded that file up to get it ready to program in, and now I'm going to click the program button. It's going to roll through all of its little steps here, and if I did a good job, it's not going to fail. It's going to say success, and it did. Programming complete, and now we get to look back at what I got going here. So I'm holding the thing in my hand. I'm going to disconnect it now. So this little connector was plugged into that Ghozt module, and when I push these buttons on this little remote control, like I did the video on somewhat recently, if you haven't seen that video, I'll just link it in a card right there. Click on that. It's going to show you how I wired up this little 4-channel remote, And this is what it looks like. It's a 4-channel remote that I've hooked up with the parking light. That's what Hunter's parking light looks like. Here's what his turn signal looks like. Wow, it's actually going from the outside in. Interesting. And this is what the show modes look like. We're seeing it for the first time right now. Hunter, what do you think, sir? I know you're watching this live. Here is what your file looked like. So we can make some changes on it in a second here. We'll keep that in this so that everybody can see, number one, how to use some of the program, and number two, what it looks like when we're looking at code and then we actually see it on there. I wasn't expecting that turn signal to go backwards, but it did though, and now we get to mess around with it a little bit. I made that change to the 4th channel here on the remote control, which was the 2nd show mode. So it's basically just going to keep panning through, little flash thing. And last but not least, we still have our parking lights on. I've also got a little toggle switch here that's going to show us the brake lights. So when I step on the brakes, that's what this taillight will do. And then there's a timeout feature where nothing will happen if I take my foot off and put it right back on the brake. And I'll show you how and why that works. We've got in the Ghozt Sequence Designer here an option that says brake, so that's checked, which is why we have the brake light function. And then we've got this thing that says brake timeout. So if I set this thing to like 10, then there's going to be a period of time in between when you step on the brake and when it does the cool little fancy mode there. And the idea is that if you step on the brake and it does some crazy thing like that, and then you take your foot off and you step on the brake again and it does it again, and it's just constantly doing it, it can get a little bit annoying to the people behind you. So you can set that timeout feature based on that little checkbox right there. So in this case, it's set to 2 seconds. You can move that up to 10 seconds. It's whatever you want. I mean, in all honesty, I think it's cool that we've got this little flashy thing that doesn't happen every time. So 2 seconds, 3 seconds, I think it's a really awesome feature to have in there. So now we're gonna hop back into the turn signal code and look at what we got. And I'm gonna go on my keyboard and look down this thing. So from this side, it looks like we're starting properly. Like it looks like it's starting from the right end. And the idea is that because of our configuration file that matches it, it looks right on the configuration file. But the reality is, I think this taillight, first of all, does look like that. This is the proper one for this actual brake light that I'm showing you, but the LEDs are in a different pattern. So we would want it to start off on LED number 1 here, and then as we work through the animation, it would come from 1 and go up instead of starting from 21 and going down. Interesting though. Okay, so I'm gonna make some changes to the configuration file because I think how everything is set up right now, our first LED that should be in the inside corner is up here at the top. And so it's actually working its way backwards even though the coding is correct. So the code looks good, but when we look at it on the computer, it seems as though maybe it's flipped. So I'm gonna see if I can find a cool little trick on flipping the animation files, at least visually, on the computer so that it matches what we're seeing with our eyeballs. So that's what's gonna come up on part 2 of this. I'm just super stoked that we get to learn all this stuff together because I don't have all the answers, but I'm willing to learn them and share them with you. So I'll see you guys on part 2 of this Genesis Coupe builder Ghozt Sequence Designer thing. And as serious as that sounded, I'll be there and it'll be good. All right, I'll see you guys. Take care. Everybody in live, you're beautiful people. Thanks for sharing your babies on Facebook group and all that. That's good. I love it, Chump Paul. You're the man. Hunter, Adam, Tim, wherever my boy Sinister is, way up in there. You are, you're all gentlemen. You're all a bunch of freaking scholars. Good day to you boys. Good day.